You guys, I have been buried in a very deep measles hole for a week, and I really need your help getting out of it. Um, I've been noticing a lot of things about measles recently, so I wanted to collect and organize my thoughts the best way that I know how, and that's with the slides presentation because I'm a former microbiology professor, and that's just what I do. But I would also like to let you know that it's been 3 years since I've done any of that shit, and I'm really out of practice, and this is new technology. No idea what's going to happen. And I hate editing. So strap in. You're here for a ride. Let's see what happens. So, if you're like me and you've been watching the news, you are wondering what in the measles is going on out there. Welcome to Micro Love Notes. I want to talk nerdy to you about microbiology. This is me sharing my love of microbiology with you because I love you and I care. And I want you to know that you can trust me because I'm a board certified clinical laboratory scientist in the field of microbiology by the American Society for Clinical Pathology. And yeah, what in the measles is going on out there? What the fudge? I need to stay on track. I need to stay on track. So I made an outline what I'm trying to tell you, and I'm gonna try to stick to this outline right here so you can see what we're gonna talk about. And also, what I'm not gonna do is tell you that you need to go and get vaccinated for measles because I don't know if you should. I don't know if you need to get vaccinated. I don't know if you can get vaccinated. The only person that can help you with that is your doctor. So yeah, I don't know if you should. I don't know if you can. I just want to share information with you about what's happening right now, and maybe it'll just help you decide if you need to make a decision. Um, yeah. Okay. So why should we talk about it? What is it? How does it spread? Why is it spread so fast? How does it look? And how exactly did we get here in this moment? Who's at risk? What should you do? Just some answering all the questions and busting some myths along the way. And I've got notes all over the place. And if any of my former students are watching this, they're like, damn, she's still spazzy as fuck. It's awesome. So I've been meaning to do this for a while, actually. I've been hiding in the shadows and waiting to come out into the light. And I was like, I'm gonna have to get mad about something. So I'm mad about measles, and that's why I want to talk about it. I was watching my local news recently. I live in Washington State, and they were reporting that there is a local outbreak. And I was like, how? Why? Why are we still dealing with this? And it only takes a few. 3 cases is considered an outbreak and a sign of local spread. And there might also be an outbreak near you. So because I checked with the CDC's pages and I saw that they're reporting positive cases in like 14 states right now. And so we're actually pretty good at tracking stuff here. And we can actually see how this happened in visuals and stuff. And so um, as of today, no, that's not right actually. So as of today, we have 8 cases in Washington this year so far. We only had 12 last year total in 2025. But this year we're a month in and we have 8. I'm going to take you there and tell you, how do we get these numbers? They actually come from real people in the lab doing work on these specimens and tests. So like if you go to the doctor or you take your child to the doctor because of symptoms of measles or whatever, they're going to collect a sample from you. So they're going to take it's probably going to be like an NP swab, and they're going to shove it way into the back of your sinuses or into your throat. And then they're going to send that swab to a person like me, and I'm going to do some fancy stuff to it and see if you have measles. So if you have measles, it's my job to tell Washington State that you have measles. It's a requirement for epidemiology purposes. And we do this with all like super serious infection diseases, and measles is highly infectious. That's why we track it. So, but I also want to point out there's going to be a delay in this number because it takes time for that information to get from me to the doctor to the state, and then so then the state's going to give that information to the CDC, and then so that's even further delay of information to the CDC. So all these numbers are actually probably a little higher than what we're looking at, which isn't very comforting, I know. Okay, so because of all the things that we are tracking, we know that measles got to Washington state from two unvaccinated infected children from South Carolina. So they were visiting Washington over the Christmas holidays. They flew in through SeaTac, which is, a really big airport. And so they exposed a lot of people there. And so then they went to areas all around Everett, Marysville, Mukilteo. Um, they went to a Mickey D's, they went to a church, and then they bounced around at a trampoline park. They were just bouncing those measles spittles like right out of their face at the park. And also they got on a ferry too. So they went to places. They had a good time during their visit. And then also my husband asked a pretty good question while I was making this presentation, and it was just, where is measles just usually hanging out? Just like, is it just in the air around us, like circulating all the time? And the answer is yeah, it's there all the time. Measles is always there, but we just don't typically see it getting into people in areas where there's high vaccination rates because this vaccine very strongly protects you against measles. So, let's keep talking about it. But yeah, it's always there in the air, circulating around you. But, we're going to see these pockets of more infections in areas of low vaccination. Like there's a direct correlation that we can see. I'm going to show you. Okay. So, two kids from South Carolina. How did measles get to South Carolina? Probably from overseas somewhere. So usually we see measles in third world countries. So, impoverished areas, that's where low vaccination rates are. But then also South Carolina is a low vaccination rate, interestingly. Actually, a lot of the Southeast United States is low vaccination rate, and we're going to look further into that too. Okay, so I wanted to cover some additional facts and information here before I go any further. In the United States, most children get their first MMR shot and that's measles, mumps, and rubella at 12 to 16 months of age. But you have to go back for more. So the first shot gives you 93% protection, and then the second shot gives you like 97% protection. But you have to go back when you're 4 to 6 years old. So I think that's where some kids slip through the cracks, is between those two doses. So, that 4% makes a difference, I think. So we were actually doing so good with our vaccination rates that measles was officially eliminated from the United States in the year 2000. But we've lost that status officially. We've seen that in the news, and now we're spreading it to Canada. Sorry about that. Yeah, so like I said, it's still especially common in these third world countries, where they have weak healthcare infrastructure systems where, it's really hard to treat people and take care of them properly and reach all these children for vaccines. But we usually see that, Africa, the Middle East, whatever. But, the United States is kind of starting to look a little bit more like some of these places, especially in the Southeast United States. And so measles vaccination rates in the United States have dropped by about 3% in the past several years. I think that's from 2022 to 2025. We saw a 3% decrease. And we can see, like I said, it's a very visible correlation between, these areas of low vaccination rates and, pockets of like super high infection. And in those areas, we're also going to see an increase in measles related deaths. And I'm going to take you on a wild ride through all of that so that we can see all these infographics because it's pretty cool. But before we do that, okay. Oh, wait. Oh, so in South Carolina, why does South Carolina look like some of these places, especially? Okay, so the vaccination rates are super low in South Carolina because they are at low poverty levels. We have a good portion of people living at or below poverty levels there, and we're not providing much funding towards public health there. So they're impoverished and we're not helping. That seems problematic, doesn't it? Yeah. And then oh wait, so some of these visuals here, we're actually going to look at where it's not just South Carolina, it's all the Southeast US. So if we look at This is our poverty status viewer. This is through actual census data information. And so here's South Carolina right here. And as you can see, high pockets of poverty in these southeastern states here. And then so if we compare this map with the CDC's map that is tracking measles, follow me. There's a lot of information here, but I just want to look at the map. So see, like you could overlay these maps. And so there's a direct correlation between our impoverished communities and higher disease acquisition because there are lower vaccination rates there. It looks like maybe they could use a little help. Um, we are struggling with some other issues there, though. We see regional resistance attributed to cultural and political differences. So there are more non-medical exemption rates happening there right now. Things happening for religious reasons. And then there's been some viral spread of misinformation about virus vaccines. So I'm going to try to talk about that too. But so this is a pretty big physical barrier first here in itself is like, these people are already struggling and we're not really helping them. And then it costs a lot of money like to get. So I'm lucky. I have health insurance. I think that any of my recommended required vaccines are completely covered and I pay nothing. But in these impoverished communities, maybe these people are struggling to find employment, or maybe they are working for an employer that doesn't offer insurance benefits and won't even give them time off to go and get the vaccine. Like these are some significant barriers here. These aren't people just saying they're not just simply refusing to do this. This is like a real situation. They're struggling. And oh, let's see how much it really costs. So, like I said, it ain't cheap. It's about $100, $200, and actually more because you can see the price list on the CDC's web pages. Let's go. Don't get nauseous. I'm sorry. So, if we scroll down to the MMR vaccine, what we're seeing here, okay, so we have three options. These two options right here, they're the same. They're just manufactured by two different places. It's the same thing, just two different people are pumping it out. And they're charging about the same price for it. So that's fair. The CDC pays this price per dose. So they're paying $26 per dose. Private sector is paying closer to like 200. So, excuse me, 100, 90, 95, 97. But if you go down here for this fancy one, this little extra varicella banger on it, that's where you're going to see a major price increase. So, CDC is going to pay close to 200 and the private sector is going to pay close to 300. So that's expensive. But like I said, if you're lucky enough to have health insurance, and not everybody in the United States has health insurance, that's an issue, right? Okay. So now I kind of want to talk about what exactly is measles because a lot of people think that measles is just a rash. Measles is not just a rash, actually. It looks like a rash because that is a real physical symptom that you can see that your body is fighting off infection. So it enters through your respiratory system. So it starts as a respiratory virus. So it comes in through your sinuses or your mouth, you breathe it in, it gets into your lungs, and as it works through your body, it can end up, entering your bloodstream and getting close to skin surface. So what you're seeing when it gets close to skin surface, your body is releasing some toxic substances to try and fight this shit. And so like nitric oxide and histamine and stuff like that. And they're actually going to cause inflammation in you. And you're going to see it when it's close to your skin. So that's actually what it is it's not just a rash. It's a whole thing in your respiratory system, but that's just the most physical thing you see. So, how does it spread? When it shoots out of your face, like it's like when those kids were at the trampoline park, coughing and sneezing all over the place. Those droplets were just bouncing all over the place. So yeah, respiratory droplets that come out of your face. That's how it spreads. Okay, and it spreads so fast because it can hang out in the room for up to 2 hours after an infected person leaves the room and just like float around in the air or hang out on surfaces. So, like, let's say I go to a party, I have measles, I like sneeze on a coffee table, and so then I leave, but my little measles spittles are still floating around in the air and sitting on a coffee table ready to infect someone for 2 hours. So anybody that comes into that room for up to 2 hours after and like touches something has the potential to be infected. And one person can infect many people. I think this number might actually be wrong too. I think I saw something different as I was putting this together. So, or wait, it might just be how they worded it is different. So, one infected person, from what I first read, they can infect 9 out of 10 people they come into contact with if those individuals are not vaccinated. And then I think I saw a number also where it said one person can infect up to 18 people. So there's those two different numbers. I think I I got all my information from the CDC and the WHO. So and I'm going to share all of my sources with you. Like this information is available to everyone for free, and I just organized it so I could put it in front of you. Um, if you are not vaccinated, or you can't get vaccinated, or you just want some additional protection, do masks work? Yes, to a certain degree, okay? Because you're going to be like, oh, but Eileen, what about those teeny viral particles that can get through and around and stuff like that? Yes, those viral particles are very small, but they need your snots and spittles to get to where they're going. So, like, think about your mask as like the splash guard or sneeze guard at a salad bar, which I strongly recommend you never eat a salad bar. But that's a physical barrier where it's like if you're doing things right, it's gonna reduce the amount of respiratory spittles that go places. So, that mask is a physical barrier that traps respiratory droplets. And so instead of going onto like the coffee table, they're going to be trapped in your mask. So that's going to reduce the overall number of viral particles that are circulating in the air. So helpful, not perfect. Okay. So this is what it's going to look like. This is also part of why there's a delay in information here, because it spreads really fast, but it works in your body really slow. It has a long incubation rate. So let's see here. Symptoms can appear 7 to 14 days after contact with an infected person. And let's see here. So that's what the CDC says. The World Health Organization says it's usually more like 10 to 14 days after exposure to the virus. And so somebody with the virus, oops, if they don't have the rash yet, they might have a high fever, cough, runny nose, red, watery eyes, white spots inside the cheeks. Do you want to see what they look like? Yeah, you do. These are actually called Koplicks. Wait, where did I see it? Do they tell you the word? I think they're called Koplik spots. I can't remember the word exactly, but yeah, this is what they look like inside the mouth. So those are the white spots that you might be looking for inside your kid's mouth. Um, and then the most visible physical symptom is the rash, which unfortunately doesn't show up until like after day 7, usually like day 10. So uh, it lives on surfaces for a long time and in the air, and you could be walking around with it for a long time without even knowing that you have it. And oh, and then you might not even go to the doctor and get swabbed. So we're not tracking the people who don't go to the doctor. So that's another reason why the real numbers might actually be lower. So there's some of the fun complications that we're going to see. Ear infections, diarrhea, because diarrhea is always a problem in microbiology. And I can't get through one single lecture without talking about diarrhea. It's so fun. You can also get pneumonia or encephalitis. So that's where it gets into your cerebral spinal fluid and goes into your brain. These complications can cause permanent damage. So, like, if you get a really bad conjunctivitis in this process, it can cause blindness. Or if you get really bad encephalitis, you can have brain damage, or some of these complications can lead to death. And we'd really like to avoid this as much as possible. Okay? All right. So, who is most at risk? Infants. Like, babies, especially infants who haven't had their first dose yet. So typically, ooh, and that's new information too. So typically, an infant can't get their first dose until 12 to 16 months. But I also discovered yesterday that if you live in an outbreak area or a high risk area, or you're going to be traveling internationally, you can talk to your pediatrician and potentially get that first dose at 6 months. So, if you would like to get your infant early protection against this, and you're in one of these areas, definitely talk to your pediatrician and see if that's possible for you. So newborns are totally unprotected. They're just at our whim, and we are walking petri dishes. So if you're a new mom and you don't let me hold your baby, I definitely know why. You should be protective as fuck because their systems are so fragile. They're not ready yet. They're not prepared for what's going to happen to them. And so, but then also it can happen to malnourished children. So, and this can happen a couple different ways. So if the body is malnourished, it is less able to produce antibodies, immune cells, and other protective barriers. And we can get there in a variety of ways. So I was talking to somebody who actually had measles when they were in high school because they became malnourished trying to cut weight for wrestling. And so they were malnourished and they got measles. Now, and then also, I don't know if that individual got the second dose of the vaccine. So if they didn't get the second dose of the vaccine and they're malnourished, they're at even greater risk. So we need proper nutrition and we need the vaccine to be like really healthy and fully protected against this, or as protected as possible, which is 97%. But there are other immunocompromised people that we are thinking about too. So, like I said, babies in general, even after those first doses, just babies in general, they're immunocompromised. So are pregnant women. And, if a pregnant woman gets sick with some of these things, they can be given then to the infant. And then there are also people who have cancer, who are receiving chemotherapy. Their immune systems are very weakened, and so they don't have the ability to fight this stuff off. And also elderly people, because as we age, our bodies start to become like infants again, like Benjamin Button. But we get more fragile as we age. Things start to kind of break down. It sucks. Okay. So what should you do if you're exposed to measles? I'll tell you what you shouldn't do, and that's you shouldn't just walk right in. Okay. That would be rude. They don't want your sick ass walking right in, because if you do that, you just enter your doctor's office, urgent care, emergency department, and you sneeze, you're going to expose everybody there to your measles. So the best thing you can do is to call ahead, let them know that you're coming, and they will actually come and meet your sick ass out in the parking lot, and they will accommodate you and prevent you from interacting with the patients that are already present and waiting and infecting them. Also, if you take this step and you get there, you can get the vaccine after exposure. So if it's administered within 72 hours of initial exposure, the MMR vaccine may provide some protection or modify the clinical course of the disease. So it might make your measles less worse, and they won't last as long, potentially. But let's say you pass that 72-hour window. Within 6 days of exposure, you can try this immunoglobulin therapy, but you have to pick one. You can't have both. And I think if for some reason you end up needing both, there has to be like a certain amount of time that passes in between these things happening. So also, if you're exposed, you should probably quarantine. Sorry, but you probably shouldn't interact with anybody for like 28 days. Try to stay home. Try not to go anywhere. Don't go to a trampoline park and bounce around, okay? And what else can we do about measles right now? I kind of they're telling us in the news, you need to check your vaccination status. And I'm not going to tell you to do something unless I've tried it myself. Like, what kind of wild goose chase is this going to be? The easiest thing that you could do is talk to your doctor. Because even if your current doctor doesn't have all your immunization records, if you have the resources, your doctor can actually run a blood test that measures the antibody levels in your system that you already have against measles. And that helps determine whether or not you're already immune. And if you're already immune, you don't necessarily need to get the vaccine again. So you should, you start with your doctor. Whoops, we're not at the end yet. Start with your doctor. And then, but let's say you don't have a doctor, or you don't want to talk to your doctor, or you don't have the resources to go to the doctor and pay for that test. I think that test costs like $100 if you don't have health insurance. You will check with your local health jurisdiction. So I live in Washington State currently. So I went to the Washington State Department of Health website to see if I could check my immunization records online. And they have actually partnered with this virtual mobile app called My IR Mobile. I think that's myimmunizationrecordsmobile.com. And so there's actually a couple states that have done this. So if we go to My IR, if I scroll all the way down here, these are the additional states who have partnered with My IR. So if you live in one of these states and you've been getting vaccinated and your records are going into the system, you might have virtual access easily to your records. And so I did this, and I was actually able to see my vaccination records for the duration of my time in Washington. But that's not where I got my MMR vaccine, because when I was younger, I lived in Illinois. So then they recommend that you check the state where you were born. So I wanted to do that. And Illinois has an online portal as well, and it's called VaxVerify. However, this portal is fairly new, and I think that they're only required to put your COVID vaccines in it. So that wasn't super helpful to me. Yeah. So, and I know that I can't contact the pediatrician who helped birth me. I don't know if they're still alive, and those records were before computers, so keep that stuff for like 10 years, I think. So, yeah, I might, if my records aren't in that portal, I can fill out a PDF form and give it to the state of Illinois to see if they have them buried somewhere, which would be interesting to see if they can actually procure them. So something else you can do in the interim, and this is just the most easy, basic thing, and my clinical microprofessor's voice lives rent-free in my brain forever, saying these words, and I hope I drilled it into all my students very well, is the number one way to prevent the spread of infection and disease is to wash your hands. Okay. So if they've got, if you've touched a lot of things, if you've got physical stuff on them, now, if they're not visibly soiled, you can use hand sanitizer. So I ran a bunch of errands the other day. I went to Target, I went to the gas station, and after I touched places there, I sanitized my hands. But when I got home, I definitely washed them, because it's the friction. The motion. It's the motion that actually matters. So even when you do the hand sanitizer, you've got to rub those hands together. And the more soap and friction you get, the greater chance you have of removing everything from your hands. And you can also cover your coughs. Like you don't have to open face blast them everywhere while you're bouncing at the trip. You shouldn't be at the trampoline park. Don't go to the trampoline park if you have coughs or sneezes. Okay. You should cover them with a tissue or wear a mask. And then if you touch that, you should wash your hands. And then another thing you can do is just stay away from people if they seem sick. Like, don't go and hang out with your sick friends. And if you feel sick, you should stay home. Like, don't go hang out with people. Okay? All right. I wanted to bust some myths that I came across along the way here. A lot of people think that the MMR vaccine causes autism, and it doesn't. And I actually didn't know why people even thought that in the first place. I was like, why do people think that? They think this is true because there was a paper published in 1997 by a British gastroenterologist that studied 12 children that had like GI issues and also like developmental stuff going on. And he tried to say that they found a link between the vaccine and these neurological developments. However, that doctor his methodology was totally flawed, and there was manipulated data in there. And this study has since been retracted from all medical journals, and the main author has lost their license to practice medicine. So this was debunked a long time ago. It was actually fully retracted in like 2010. And it's been like super wiped from the internet. I don't want you even to be able to find it. Like that's how fake news it is. They were like, we're just gonna obliterate it, okay? Um, so, and I actually was talking to one of my healthcare providers the other day, and she actually has access to it. And she sent it to me, and I read it, and I was like, what the fuck even is this shit? It's weird. I read a lot of scientific journal papers and stuff like that, and I was like, I had trouble with this. I had problems with it. It just didn't make any sense. Like, it was really weird. So, that's been debunked. Also, I think with this link that people think they see with autism and vaccines is that people think that there might be mercury in the vaccines, and there is not. Um, there was previously a preservative, I think it was called thimerosal, and it contained mercury, but it's not in there. But we have to trust the information that we're being given to believe that. So the FDA does require a package insert that tells you what is actually in the vaccine. So we have to believe information that's coming from the government. Like, it's hard, right, you guys? Like, who do we trust? Do we trust the news? Do we trust our doctor? Do we trust politicians? Do we trust science anymore? It's hard. It's really hard. But I have been doing this for a long time, and I believe in the work that I've been doing, and I believe in the people who are still doing it. So I feel like I have to have a little bit of faith in that package insert that tells you that there's no mercury in there. It's gonna say that there is like glucose, sorbitol, some other stuff in there. And it will tell you that there is a little bit of the virus in the vaccine. So, does the measles vaccine give you measles? No. Okay, so it's just going to give you just the tip. It's going to give you just a tiny portion of the virus, just enough for your immune system to recognize it and build up antibodies against it. And then, if you encounter this organism again, your immune system remembers what has been done and it will trigger this response again. So, you won't have a full blown measles infection. You might feel a little crappy, but that's just because your body is actually doing something. It's doing some work, but you're not going to actually get a measles infection from this. Yeah. Oh, also, we don't want to have a measles party like we did with chicken pox. Like, my mom sent me to one of those, and I had chicken pox for my sixth birthday. But chicken pox is less severe than measles, and measles comes with greater risk of serious complications requiring hospitalization, and there's a greater chance of debilitating disease or death. And we know that one party can lead to a huge outbreak, because if I went to that party with my measles and snotted all over the place, it's going to linger in there for a while, and it's going to make contact with a lot of people in the room. Yeah, so one party can lead to a huge disaster. And actually, like, we've been noticing what a disastrous party is happening in South Carolina for a while. Like, they've been watching it for a couple of months, saying, like, hey, if we don't do something about this, there's going to be a huge outbreak. Here we is. Okay. So thank you for hanging out for the duration of this. If you made it this far, congratulations. You've seen a portion of my brain. And like I said, I got all these resources from the internet. They're free. And if you're curious and you want to find them yourself, they're all here. So, like I said, it started with Washington State measles information, where they're counting it down, and you can see all of this stuff happening. These are real numbers that people are actually reporting. You can see South Carolina's measles status by, they just updated that they're up to 789 cases, and there's all kinds of information in here. And I really love the CDC's pages because there is a ton of super cool stuff in here and really good like infographics that kind of help break everything down and help make it make sense. The CDC and the World Health Organization have done a lot of really important work to um, help spread real information and uh, you know get it out there to everyone because we should all have access to this information. And I also think that everybody should have access to good health care and resources. So yeah, I'm pretty bummed out about that. What am I gonna do next? I don't know. So I kind of started this channel with the idea of maybe helping people pass boards. I can help you if you're trying to become MLS, MLT certified, or if you're a nurse or physician trying to get board certified. I could create content that's kind of like geared towards that. Or if you're somebody who just has questions about microbiology and you want me to answer them, drop them in the comments. Like maybe you have a question about RFK Jr.'s brainworm, or what else is going out there? RFK Jr.'s brainworm. There's what else? Oh, is how real is The Last of Us? That's a great question to talk about. That came up at a wedding that I was at, and oh man, this is actually really interesting. So there's so much to talk about, and I really appreciate you being here with me and listening. And we'll see what comes out of this. So come back again, I guess, if you feel like it. Whatever. Bye.